All right, so we will get started right now. Hi, everyone. I am Laura Crandall. I'm the Director of Student Involvement and Leadership at ESF. Thank you for the, yes, Bills are 4-0 and they usually start out strong. Let's hope that they stay strong to the end. I was a Bills fan when they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. So that's a little bit about me. I'm from Buffalo too. Anyway, so we're here together today to meet some of our faculty who teach common first year courses, and we don't have broad representation. I know that some of our faculty have had other commitments on Sunday nights, some families. I know that some of us are parents of multiple. We'll keep it as much as we, thank you. I love the Bill shout outs. It's great. So we'll start by introducing everyone. So like I said, I'm Laura Crandall. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I've been at ESF as first a student. I came to ESF a while ago, was in the first year courses that your students are in. And then I got my master's at FU, Syracuse University, and have been working at ESF in my role for almost 10 years. And I've been involved with orientation and some of the first year experience work we've done, kind of the Common Core courses that maybe some of your students have touched on with you. So, you know, again, we all have had some history with this, you know, first year transition. So I'll jump over to Neil since I see his face nodding and see his earbuds in.
Yeah, I was having some audio issues there, but hi everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Neil Abrams. I instruct this semester the General Chemistry Lectures, which is FCH 150, but a large number of students are in that course. I've been teaching that for a couple of years now. Before that, I was also teaching the labs, and Kate can tell you about that. I've been at ESF since about 2007. And with a real passion and interest in working with first year students like yours. And so Laura and I have been working for many years now in first year programs, and excited to talk with you tonight.
All right, thank you so much. Next we'll go to Kate.
Hi everybody, my name is Kate Bailie. I joined ESF's chemistry team back in 2018. I think this is my 3rd year. I'm the general chemistry lab coordinator, but I also teach the fall general chemistry lab, and that is FCH 151, kind of with Dr. Abrams. And I went to a pretty local school, SUNY Oswego, about 40 minutes north of Syracuse, for both my grad and undergrad degrees in chemistry. And I'm super excited to talk to you all.
Thank you so much. And right now, last but not least, is Greg McGee, who has his camera off, and I'll let him say more about that.
Hey, hi, Laura. Hello, everyone. Let me come out of the shadows here just a little bit. I'm just not quite certain what's going to be happening with the internet. I'm currently at our Huntington Wildlife Forest. It's the remote station in the Adirondacks. I'm taking a little window of time here to break away for 4 or 5 days and come up and get some field data, one of the cuts that's going to be taking place in one of our compartments here. So welcome everyone, great to have everybody on the call this evening. I teach the general biology laboratories, and the last couple of years I've been teaming up with my friend and colleague Melissa Furkey to instruct the General Biology 1 lecture. So I've been meeting with your students in lecture, and also been meeting with them in our live general biology laboratory also. I've been doing this for 12 years now. This is my 12th year working with Neil and Laura, just about most of those years as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So nice to have everybody on the call this evening.
Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. And like I said, we have a whole host of other faculty who do teach. Again, Dr. McGee mentioned his counterpart, Dr. Furkey. And then we also have Mark Teece, Dr. Teece, who teaches chemistry as well. And then we have a lot of our first year students are in EWP 190, and there are a lot of faculty who teach EWP 190. some are adjunct and some have been at ESF since, you know, when we used to have learning communities and before we used to have our own residence hall, which are back when I was a student. And then a lot of our students are in a form of calculus or pre-calc. There's a whole host of math courses and again, EWP courses as well. So, and then all first year students generally take 132 course. So Dr. McGee is the faculty for bio. And then there are all the other departments have a 132 as well. I'm not too savvy on doing polls, but if I can figure it out, I will maybe ask one. But since there's so few of you, if y'all want to just tell us a little bit about in the chat box who your student is, if they're a first year student, a transfer student, if they're brand new, or a couple semesters in, we'd love to know kind of who your students are. So just feel free to post that right in the chat. So as you're doing that, I'd like to see if we could start with chemistry to talk about kind of what trends you're seeing in the classroom, virtual or in person, and kind of, you know, just to give a kind of a broad sense of where you're finding the students are at. Maybe Neil, you can start.
Sure. So again, my name is Neil Abrams. I teach the general chemistry lectures this semester, so I can speak a little bit to that. So this semester, if your student hasn't told you and they happen to be in this class, the course is online only. It's a large class of about 260 students, which is great because we have a huge group of first year students as well as some transfer students and other continuing students, but we are not meeting in person, which makes it a little more difficult for me to get to know your student. This course is also being taught asynchronously, so that means that it is on their schedule, so to speak, to be able to complete assignments. All the assignments for students are given, and all of my lectures are available on Mondays, and they close on Saturdays. And for the most part, I've been very pleased with seeing students complete the work, sometimes at the very beginning of the week, sometimes at the very last moment, but either way, they're completing the work. But I do get the sense sometimes that I'm a little disconnected from the students as differently than I would be if I was to get to see them in person, in lectures, as I'd done for 10 years prior, or 12, or however long it's been. So getting that connection to get to know students has been a little bit of the downside. We've had a few opportunities for students to meet, and I hope they've and I know many have taken me up on that. But happy to answer questions specifically about chemistry or other first year topics. Laura, if that's everything that I was supposed to say or not.
Yeah, that's a good way to get started. So thank you for that. Kate, can you talk a little bit about chemistry lab?
Sure. So chemistry lab is fun because we actually get to be in person. It's only half of the time. So we are running a hybrid with half of the time being in person for lab, half of the time being virtual lab, mainly so that we can keep social distancing and still get the experience of being in the lab. From what I understand, this is like our students' favorite part. They get to be with other people. They get to put their hands on things. I personally have one of the sections. We have a bunch of graduate TAs. So sometimes I feel a little bit disconnected because when I'm showing up, I'm generally in like a big face shield. I look kind of crazy, but they do get to work with 2 to 3 grad students and get to have at least some sort of interaction while also applying what they're learning. Also, I'm pretty impressed about how much work is being completed. I honestly don't know how I would do online school right now. And so I'm pretty impressed with the work ethic that we've got right now. Same deal, you know, some of them are getting it done right at the beginning, some of them right at the end, but it's getting there. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. I saw a question. So before I jump over to Greg, is there a relationship between chem lectures and chem lab? So could one of you kind of address that for them?
All right, I'm not on mute, so I guess I'll talk, Neil. Yeah, so in the first semester, it's a little bit tricky as they learn all of the introductory material. A lot of the material doesn't quite match, but it still does have a relationship. In the second semester, it gets much easier to really relate the two with the topics in the schedule. But they do learn things. Sometimes they'll learn it first in lab, sometimes they'll learn it first in lecture, but they do correspond pretty closely.
I would, yeah, I would agree with that. They are well connected, but just to clarify, in case there was any wondering, they are actually separate courses. So that does show up separately in student schedules. But I think most importantly, from the human standpoint, Kate and I, our offices are 2 doors apart from each other. So we do, when the question is the relationship, we talk all the time. And I think that really underlies all of the instruction that we're trying to get forward.
Great, thank you so much. And if that helps answer the question, great. And if you want further information, let us know there. So we'll jump over to Greg. If you can talk about what's going on in bio, and then maybe also touch on the relationship between bio lecture and bio lab too.
Yeah, those are good questions. So like Neil mentioned for chemistry, the biology lecture, because there are, I think we have 240 in the class right now. We had to put that online. It was too big to find any space to socially distance on campus without having to, teach probably 8 different sections a day for it. So that was the reason that we went online with that. And then, as Kate mentioned, we really were dedicated to trying to give our first year students some type of an in-person experience whenever they came to campus. So the laboratory for biology is in person. And to do that, Kate, I don't know what you had to do to space students, but for us, for the space that we have in our laboratory, I had to reduce the population of students to about 12 maximum in those labs. And what that meant is that we're running 20 laboratory sections a week. So we turn the lab over on Friday. I have instruction with 22 graduate and undergraduate TAs. And then Saturday morning, we start laboratory off, and we run laboratory until the end of the day on Thursday. And I'll tell you that I was a little hesitant about running the labs. We didn't know what we were going to be in for this semester. I was especially concerned about the instructors that we may or may not have to teach the labs. I really make an effort to try to put 2 instructors in each of the labs every section, so that there are graduate students who are administering and generally responsible for the organization and delivery of each of the lab sections, but we team them with very capable and very dedicated undergraduates also. And these undergraduates are doing this voluntarily. They're receiving credit for it, but they're doing it voluntarily. And I know how important it is to have 2 instructors in some of these laboratories for some of the times that we're doing some technical work there. And so I was very concerned about what the undergrads were going to do. I really thought I was going to be without undergraduate help. But to T, every single one of them wrote back to me and said, yep, I'm going to be on campus. I intend to be in Syracuse. I want to teach this lab. I want to help out with the instruction, and they wanted to do this in person. So we have a lot of people who really are itching to have this interpersonal interaction during instruction. And it's really working out really well. So far things are going very well with the lab. We have been on 3 field trips already. The question came up about how the labs and the lectures are related. We too try to make a connection that when we're talking about some type of concept in lecture, that we are able within a week, maybe ahead of it or behind it, to touch on those concepts in laboratory. I'm going to confess that this year I kind of broke that connection a little bit, more so because I wasn't certain what we were going to be in for this semester, and I wanted to make sure that we could get outside. We weren't stuck inside in what I think is some tight quarters. So in the first end of the semester, I kind of went out of the lab, disrupted some of that demonstration type of laboratory that we would do, say when we're talking about, for instance, the diversity of animals. I pulled that diversity of animal lab right now because it would be aligned with the instruction and lecture at this point. And I did that in favor of getting out and doing another field trip where we're gathering data, we're applying the scientific method, we're testing hypotheses, we're manipulating the data, learning how to use spreadsheets and do calculations, and working on writing reports. So, well, I guess speaking of the reports, I don't know if your students are experiencing or expressing any stress right now, but their first laboratory report is going to be due not this week, but next week. And we've been working on them with that for the past 4 weeks to establish the construct, understand the process for developing these laboratory reports. We've worked through the calculations with them, given them some guidance on preparation, and they're turning in their reports very soon right now. So that's what's happening in lab. I'll mention, like Neil said, that the lectures are generally going all right. Work is coming in, students are doing okay. I do feel a bit of disconnect this year that I've never felt with the lectures. And I think it's just a matter of how we're presenting the lecture. Now Neil is doing his lecture asynchronously and doing, I think, a real good job with that. I am not as technically savvy as Neil is, and I felt like I just wanted to try to deliver this lecture more in person, to be in the space. So we have students coming on synchronously Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8:30. They're on the call with us, and you know, in that way, students are there. They're asking questions, they're texting questions, but I'm not feeling like we're having the type of interaction that we normally would have in our laboratories, or I'm sorry, in the lecture spaces. So anyway, let me stop it there, and maybe there are some questions or things that come up.
Thank you so much for sharing that about biology. So just to clarify, so everyone is very aware, I know these are words we've been using for over a half a year now, but synchronous is live, virtual, real time, where you're hearing the professor at the same time as everyone else, whereas asynchronous is it's being pre-recorded or done differently, and you could tune in when you'd like to tune in. So just so everyone's on the same playing field. So it sounded like, well, one question that did come up is, can you talk about the recitations and workshops?
I can start with recitations. I'm not familiar with workshops and who's running workshops, but at least in chemistry, recitations are run at the tail end of the week, and they're also online, virtual, but meant to be collaborative work. They're overseen by teaching assistants, both undergrads and graduates, and they're meant to be collaborative. So students are working on problems that would probably be a little more challenging than they would be able to answer by themselves, but together they can usually answer them, and with a little bit of guidance from some teaching assistants. So it's a way for them to be able to actually talk and interact and kind of get away from the Zoom black boxes that we sometimes experience when we don't know who we're talking to. It's a good way for them to be able to engage with one another. So that's recitations, and they are, if there was a question about grading, they're graded based on attendance and participation.
Laura, maybe I'll speak to the point of the workshops. I think the workshops are probably related to the general biology lecture. We offer, I think there's 6 workshops that are being offered through the week. We team up the graduate TAs and the undergraduate TAs for full hour workshops. And they're meant to review some of the muddy points from lecture, give students an opportunity to ask questions and have questions answered, and otherwise direct them through some more instruction, reviewing the big topics, what we know, what we've learned in the past, or some of the expected muddy points that students are going to have. So we are doing these both in person and online. And again, with the trend, we really thought that we needed to pile up with the online workshops, but we had a lot of students come into the in-person workshops. We actually took a couple of them and took them offline and put them in person. But they're meant as review sessions, and we offer them weekly. They're offered at many times during the week. So normally students have the opportunity to make 2 or 3 of them. I think I've not heard of anybody having a situation where they can't make any one of those workshops.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know that there are some, not sure if any of the families tuning in have any students in tutoring or academic support in general. Can you both touch on kind of the relationship that you have with the tutors and TAs, and just again for that higher level academic support than simply just reaching out to the three of you? Are there strategies you'd also recommend on top of it?
All right. I see Kate kind of go, we're sparring. One of the strategies I would recommend, which is probably not news to anyone who is parent or family member of a child in college, is a time management plan. Knowing when things are due. I think we've all been tried to be very, very consistent with assignment dates, so everyone can keep things in mind. I know in an online world, it's not like you're going to the place where the thing happens. Rather, it's you have to remember when it happens or when something is due. So that's a big piece of it. And then, of course, you using office hours, which are not going to the principal's office. I know there's a lot of that misconception out there, especially with first-year students. Office hours are times when we're here to be able to work directly with students. Some of us have in-person office hours, and some of us, I'm sure, have online office hours. And that would be the biggest piece I would mention. And I'm just going to hop in because I saw a question about negative impact on instruction and learning. And it's funny that that was asked because I actually just took a look at my course grade so far, and the average is exactly the same as it was last year at this time, which is exactly what it is at the end of the semester too, a lot of times. So from a question about impact on instruction, while I'm disconnected, I am pleasantly surprised that students are learning and capturing the content.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Greg, and then we'll jump over to Nasri, just because I don't want to forget to introduce him. So Greg, do you want to touch on that question too?
Yeah, just in terms of the supports and the connection and disconnects, Laura. Yeah, one of the things that Neil was mentioning that I think is very important for students to take advantage of is the office hours, both the office hours for the graduate assistants and for the instructors. And as Neil mentions, it's not going to the principal's office. We really do want to meet the students. I'm feeling like we're not meeting the students well this year at all. And oftentimes I know it's tough for students to come see the old man in his office. I get that. But more so this year, I think students aren't doing that. And I'm hearing from the graduate students that they're not doing that. And I'm trying to do a couple of things to try to promote students to come and at least visit, come say hi, get to know us, learn that we're approachable. I think we are. Neil, I don't know if you think we are or not, but have the students come see us and frankly get to us and start developing a relationship. I have not developed the relationships this year that I have in past years. So, I think that's important for their growth. I think it's important for their instruction. I think it's important for their academic progress, to know that we're a team of learning on campus, and we do this together. And I want students to come whenever they're having problems, come say hi and get some help. And when students aren't having problems, come say hi so that they know how to get help. And really to come and do this sooner rather than later, before the problem becomes acute. That's whenever things are difficult. But if students can start to come see us, develop a relationship with us, seek help on just a constant, steady basis, I think that will do them well. I think it will serve them well to do that.
Definitely agree. I want to turn it over to Nasri and talk a little bit about what you do at ESF and how the semester has been for you in your area.
Hello. Okay, I'm the math director and one of the instructors at ESF, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with this format, but just from listening to what people are saying, I like to say that students seem to be very comfortable with the way that the math programs handling the online learning. There is, of course, naturally some confusion early on. They were confused as to what assignments are due when, and we use 2 different platforms, so there was some confusion there. But I think after a couple weeks into it, people have a better understanding of the format, and now they can just focus on the learning. But I'm not exactly sure what questions or concerns that people may have. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, or I'm happy to just listen as well.
Nasri, can you touch on what math courses you have general oversight for again, just so people have that context?
Yes. Usually they're from algebra, pre-calc, calc 1, calc 2, calc 3 differential equations. I don't oversee the statistic courses. That's done, that's separate. But usually those are the courses that's in my domain that I oversee.
Okay, thank you. There is a math question, but we'll jump right over to Mark Teece, who teaches chemistry. Mark, can you touch a little bit about what role you have at ESF? And it seems like a lot of our families in this session are first-year families. So can you just touch on again what you do and how things are going so far from your perspective?
Sure. Sorry I had a bit of a family emergency. I teach the survey of chemical principles, which is the chemistry for non-science majors. And so from a point of view of how things are going, many students, I think, are having a few problems with the online classes. One of the big things that we're seeing actually is, unfortunately, students aren't coming and using the resources that we have. Maybe you've all touched on this already, and that is a little disappointing. We're trying to get as many students to come and talk to us as possible, through this online forum, and that really is the biggest thing. If we can try and get more students come and talk to us, and the ones that come and talk to us, miraculously find out that we're actually quite useful. So that if we can encourage more and more students to come and talk to us, that would be great.
Thank you so much. Nasri, this question came up, and there's a big concern about trying to learn math online. Do you think math might possibly be in person next semester? As the feedback I have heard is that learning calculus online is a bit challenging. Do you have any insights to what the spring semester might look like?
I think it's going to be very similar to the fall. Yeah, and learning calculus in class is challenging as well, not just online. But yeah, I can see that. Yeah, online it could be more challenging as well. And each instructor they do their own format for their courses. But I know for the classes that I teach, I always try to make myself always available for students, and I have office hours on a particular day, and what I do is I just do the online lectures so that I don't expect everybody to be there and following online as we would in a classroom, because I know people learn in different ways. So I try to make a lot of different possibilities available for students, whether it's online lectures. We have in-class lectures as well, so for people to show up. So we do live class lectures. I try to accommodate to everyone's different learning needs in that sense. but again, each instructor, they do it their own way. Some instructors will require students to meet during class time as if it was a normal lecture. And I know the attendance is not nearly as well as it should be, as if it was in class. But we do provide other resources as well. Really, it's if the students give an effort, it's very difficult for them not to succeed.
Okay, thank you for that question or answer. So one thing that I do know that comes up, and maybe all of you can touch on it, because I suspect that many of you are also advisors. So some of the families may have heard this too, but there is at times some first year and transfer students new to ESF coming in and feeling the disengagement of, I came to do this as a career, and I wanted to, you know, get into research, or I'm just not finding the kind of the passion that I had when I applied to ESF. And so what is advice that you might give to the families to help their student out? Because ultimately this session is really, you know, put together so we can help you help your student succeed at ESF. You know, now that you have a name and a face together, you can know, oh, they're actually kind of nice. Like, they don't seem very scary, you know, so you know, and we've all said that you all are very approachable. You're very collaborative. We exchange emails for years prior to COVID. We've all been on a team before. And so there's a lot of work we do behind the scenes. But again, if y'all can touch on it, we'll start with you, Kate, on, I guess I just, surprise, but just so that, you know, what advice would you give to, again, families who have students who are saying, this isn't for me, I wanted to do X and I'm just not seeing it. And, you know, as Kate might be thinking about an answer to that, as someone who oversees our student organizations, we have about 40. A lot of them do things that maybe can make you feel that passion again, you know, going to, you know, an animal dissection. They Wildlife Society, for example, just dissected an owl pellet. Our fishing clubs are still going out and being active. So there's things that our students are doing. They're still finding ways to have a safety plan. Obviously, they can't just go and do what they were doing prior to COVID. But, you know, I think some of that, and not to, you know, bring it back to the work I do, but that is something that could potentially bring some joy, and that could lead from doing something with a peer or student who says, oh, you like that, why don't you talk to Professor X, or why don't you think about studying abroad? So Kate, can you touch on that question?
Sure. So I am not an advisor, but I have maybe a different perspective coming from being, I believe, the most recent graduate of all of the faculty that are on this call. I'm pretty young. So in my eyes, I was huge into student involvement when I was in college. And right now that's really hard. But there are clubs that are doing a Zoom call, doing, you know, stuff outside. That is like one of the best ways to get engaged with not only your college, but with, you know, all of the other first years and even the seniors, kind of getting to know people. A big part of, you know, going into your upperclassmen years is kind of networking, figuring out who's doing what research, kind of getting into that. And that's really where the passion starts to grow, at least in my eyes, is like starting to specialize, starting to do research that you really are, really love and are passionate about. So I would just recommend, you know, if you have a student that seems that they're not really engaging much, or they're not really having the best time, getting engaged with a club or a professor, just having those conversations, you know, even on Zoom, is a really great way to kind of bring yourself together with the community.
Laura, maybe I'll jump in here also. You know, the transfer students and non-residential students do concern me, especially this time. It's difficult for transfer students to make connections to begin with, and the issue is for many of them, they're you know, they're coming in as sophomores or even juniors. They're working themselves into courses where perhaps students have already developed their study groups from past years. Not to say at all that our students are cliquish at all. I don't think that's the case. I think they're very welcoming, but sometimes it's very difficult to meet people in those laboratories and lectures whenever everybody has their study groups formed. With some of the commuter students, I'll say that on occasions, I don't know if there's any commuter students, families on the call here or not, but I see students always coming to campus, doing their work, and then leaving campus. And that's always, I mean, that's an issue I think that I've been seeing over the years to begin with, even before COVID. Now I think it makes the disconnect even worse. I had a conversation with the students in the lab section that I meet with regularly, and and I'm asking them, what do your days look like? And I'm hearing from them that they're making connections in the dorm. The one student who's a commuter is coming to campus and then leaving because he says he has no reason to stay on campus. The students who are in the dorms go to their online classes, go to their laboratories, and then go back to their dorm spaces. And I can't help but wonder if there's a lack of a daily routine that might be helpful for students to navigate this, to get up, have breakfast, get yourself in front of your computer to go to class, or get to lab or something. But then stay on campus and be around and be present, meet up with other students on campus and form some study groups. There's all kinds of academic spaces that I'm seeing on campus that frankly are not being used because there are not students to use them. To be up on the quad, it's starting to turn into October now and it's feeling it. But the quad on campus frankly was very eerily quiet this fall. And I guess my expectation was that would be the place to be, that people would be outside distancing, but still making those social connections. And I guess I'm just not seeing that. I don't know if others are seeing something differently than that, but I think for students to make connections, I think that's part of it, to go find study mates, to meet with those study mates, to maybe not do that in the dormitory, to get out of the dormitory periodically, maybe do that on campus or do that in some of the laboratories, or go find some open classroom spaces to interact with other people. Come to the workshops and come to office hours, go as a group to office hours. Maybe that would make it less scary to come see the professors if you go in a small pod to an office hour to have some questions answered. So I don't know, there's just some things I'm thinking about that might be helpful for students to start developing a routine. Maybe they do have a routine. Maybe it's perfectly fine and I'm overstating this, but it's just maybe not the routine that I would prefer to have.
Thank you.
So can I just say something, Laura? So I teach a lab as well, and a chemistry lab. And, just from a lighter point of view, I mean, I saw something really wonderful happen in one lab where students suddenly realized that there were actually other human beings across the lab space from them. And it only happened in one lab. And it was just wonderful to see. They suddenly realized, well, I actually can talk to this person. And so we ended up with a lot of tartan-clad, plaid-clad men talking to each other, and women coming and talking to everyone. And it was this magnificent group that started talking to each other, socially distanced, of course, but it was great to see. And, the next time that lab met, they were all very, very talkative. And so it is possible, but there needs to be a bit more encouragement to try and get people to actually do this, to step out of their rather strange comfort zone at the moment, and to go out and talk to people. Because I think that the whole mask idea, everybody has what I call COVID quiet. They don't want to talk to anyone. And once there was that realization that you could actually talk to people, I think that was really fun to watch it sort of unfold in front of us. So that's a positive thing. And the other thing I've heard from students who are say sophomores or juniors is that they are finding other spaces at ESF, classrooms that aren't being used, and they're working together in those spaces, which I think is important to realize that you need to get out of your dorm room and find these other spaces. My daughter actually just started college herself, and that's one of the things that she has been doing. She calls it classroom hopping, and they're finding different spaces where they can meet up, and I think that becomes really important. And to maybe try and find other people, not necessarily in your major, but other people to to socialize with, because there are spaces.
Do I get to hop in now? So one thing I'll just mention after doing this for a couple of years, that I will say what would normally be this week coming up is one of the hardest weeks for students in person year after year. It's just that time when they've been away from home or been in college where it's just like everything is on top. That was now last week because we started a week early. And I saw that in my assignments. And it's not abnormal, but it's kind of at the peak. So I think as much encouragement as families can offer to our students that it will be okay. I think there is a lot of truth to that, getting past the stage. Students often say the freshman year was so hard, the first year was so hard. My first year at ESF was so hard, but after that it was okay. I don't know if classes are actually easier as you go up, but I think you figure it out. And to kind of what Mark was saying is, getting to realize that you can talk to one another. And to the question that just popped up about not having time for clubs, I guess I would ask the question of just, well, how is time being spent? Because I know I am pretty actually unaware of how much time a student spends on my class. I think I have an idea. And if students are spending a normal amount of time, that's a great time to reach out. On the other side, it may be a perception of time. And when you look at that time management piece, thinking about where the hours in the day are, and can you steal a couple hours away at 6 or 7 o'clock for a club to meet? And I'll make a little plug for the chemistry club because I advise them. Instead of meeting in person and talking about, I don't know, chemistry and eating pizza, they're actually going to be sending out kits to the club members, and they're going to do like at-home kitchen chemistry as part of their chemistry club activity. So they're still having social interaction, even though it does have to be virtual because of some of the rules with our clubs on campus. So there are certainly opportunities out there, and I hope our students can make time to experience them.
Did anyone else want to jump in on that? It's okay if you don't have anything for Mark.
So, I'll just go again, just to go off what Neil was saying, the Green Campus Initiative as an example, that's one of the clubs. And I know that they're meeting regularly, and they're sort of very active in green initiatives. And I think last week they were making no contact deodorant or something, but they were doing it all virtually. And so they are meeting all the time. So there are clubs that are working hard, meeting, on Zoom virtually. So, I think people, need to reach out a little bit to try and find what's happening. And I'm sure Laura has all of these resources available to help students find these resources. I think as a parent of a new college student as well, I realized that, new college students often get bombarded with so much information that they often forget a lot of this information. And I'm one of these like helicopter parents, unfortunately. And so I keep sort of sending emails of like, well, have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? And my daughter says, well, I didn't hear about that because she missed the email. So I'm not saying you should become helicopter parents, but there are all these resources and clubs, and often students miss that information the first time it comes about because there's so many other exciting things happening or strange things happening. So that idea of almost sort of revisiting what happened at the very beginning college is a good plan to say, oh well, I don't really know what these clubs are, and I'm sure Laura could just briefly say where those resources would be.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing out a couple of the clubs too, and the work that they do. I do think that it is so different than high school too. Our students are hosting, not just talking about, maybe minimal things. And I know not all high schools are created equally with the level of student clubs and student government, but our students go and present at conferences. They organize a weekend-long trip. Multiple often. They fundraise to afford to go on conferences. They're bringing in speakers. They're talking about, really cool things. So our clubs meet weekly, bi-weekly. Some are more active than others because it's harder, or they haven't had the mental space to really think about some of the stuff that they normally would do. Camping in a tent is just not something we're allowing right now. It's just too risky. But there's a lot of things our clubs have been doing. Even simply a birding club might go birding in the cemetery located behind campus in Centennial Hall. And that just might mean I don't get to take ornithology until I'm a sophomore or junior, but I get to be with students, or herping, going and trying to find amphibians and reptiles is herping. We have a herpetology club. So they're finding little ways where it just might mean, okay, I went and there's no formal way to, rush like a fraternity or sorority. If you just sign up or put your name out there and say, hey, I want to join their Facebook or their Instagram, or just figure out when they meet, I'm always a great point of reference, or my coordinator, Sarah Haug, to find when this club meets. And it just might mean one hour, 2 hours on a Saturday that might create all the connections that you need. It might not. It could mean I don't really want to do clubs. I want to really get into research. Maybe that's another way to talk about it. Not all of our students go into grad school, but certainly there's a lot of students who do great internships, find ways to fund them, again, study abroad. And so it just might be that one thing that takes them slightly out of their comfort zone or has them rearranged just slightly. It's just like finding, I think, time for the gym, which I'm definitely guilty of not finding time right now. I do have a treadmill, so my gym is a treadmill. However, it's just finding that little hour time to do something for them that, again, will create that why, that passion, that energy. And, I think, again, having the names with the faces helps a lot. The folks in this chat, I had actually most of these people as a student myself. So, I was able to see the kindness and the ability to just connect with you all on I'm not getting this, can you help me? Or, I want to do better and get a slightly higher grade, and that's okay too. So, again, we just want to help you help your student. Just do something a little bit more. It's a different world right now, and obviously we all would rather be able to do what we were doing 6 months ago with your student, but we just can't right now. And so whatever way we can help support that is really important to us. I wanted to, because we have about 10 minutes left, and again, if you have questions or want to talk specifically, if anyone wanted to put any contact info, that's great. I know that our faculty do get bombarded, but feel free to do that in the chat box. But I wanted to end and have you all just touch on what's ahead for the rest of the semester, because we're already about halfway through, which is surprising. But if y'all could touch on kind of general overview of what's going on next. The next month or so, or the rest of the year, anything that help, again, our parents and families help their students succeed. How about we go in reverse order? So I will say, let's go with Mark. You're on my last view person here.
Okay. So what's going on for the rest of the rest of the semester in particularly in chemistry in my class anyway is we just had an exam, which was potentially a bit of a shock, but it's one of these things where students sort of then get a sense of what needs to happen, and the most important thing to tell students really is that you know, we want you to pass the class. You know, I think that sometimes students think, you know, we're there to try and weed you out. You know, our job is why we do what we do is to really help you pass the class. So, you know, please come to our office hours. Please talk to us. You know, we're not really that awful. Some of us actually are really nice. Looking at Neil and Kate and Greg, sorry, and Nasri. Anyway, and so the rest of the semester in the labs, we have a whole series of labs, in-person labs as well as virtual labs, which Kate is very familiar with. And so that's really what's going to be going on. And then, you know, up to Thanksgiving, and then after Thanksgiving, there's going to be a lot of the rest of it's going to be online at that point. But everything is going to sort of come to a head by Thanksgiving. And we're also hoping that in my class anyway, and I think with other classes, next week is going to be a bit of a week where people can make up some of the assignments that potentially they've missed. And that's going to come out this week as well. Laura's on mute.
Oh, sorry. Nasri, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Okay, so we have 2 more exams in the final. Really, every other week there's an assessment in our courses, and the courses are uniform so that students from different sections, even if they don't have the same instructor, they can collaborate on the material. So it's structured to be uniform to encourage collaboration between students. But other than that, I mean, look, let me just say this. I would much rather be in the classroom myself because I like that in person, and doing online teaching, I'm working twice as hard as I would have been if I wasn't in the classroom. And I know some people, sometimes they think, oh yeah, so it's nice working from a home or working from online, you know, but that's not the case. This has been the hardest semester teaching that I've had. And I took a lot of feedback when we were forced to go online in May to try to improve the experience as well for students, like cutting the assignments, trying to make them smaller chunks, easier for them to work on and stuff. So, I mean, I see my instructors, they're working very hard. And, you know, as much as we'd love to be in the classroom, we're really trying to make sure that the experience is just as enriching online.
Greg, did you want to jump in next?
Sure, I'll be happy to. And you know, I'll second what Nasri said. I know that everybody is working very hard to deliver these courses. This is such an unnatural way to interact with people. And I'll be frank. I've been spending all of my time trying to figure out technology as opposed to doing biology. And that's frustrating to me. But we're doing the best we can, and we want to deliver the best product we can for your students. I'm looking forward to the day that we can be working with the students more one-on-one. Laura, to your question, as for how we're going to be proceeding the rest of the semester. So students are going to have their second of 4 exams and lecture on Wednesday. So my colleague, I mentioned Dr. Furkey a little bit earlier. I began the class with a unit on ecology. We teach animal and plant diversity very heavily in this course. It's a little different than I think what a lot of biology courses look like across the country, because we emphasize organismal biology and diversity so much. So Melissa is just finishing a unit on animals and fungus diversity, and they're going to have their exam on Wednesday. Then Friday, I pick up again for another 3 or 4 weeks or so and talk about plant form and function. I'll deliver a third exam on that. And then Melissa comes back and teaches animal structure and function. So students are going to have, they're going to be taking their second of 4 midterm exams. They'll have a take-home final after Thanksgiving. So we're going to run classes right up to Thanksgiving, and then students will have their final exam after Thanksgiving. As for laboratory, we're rounding out our second set of data for students to analyze. They're going to be writing not a large lab report, but a small lab report, just some responses to some prompts on some questions about the data that they gathered last week. We're then going to be coming indoors for a little bit. We're going to learn microscopy. I think that's important for our students to learn how to use and abuse microscopes. And I believe that our microscopes will never be so clean and sterile as they will this year. So this is one of those classes that I'm really I'm not concerned, but I want to make sure that we're doing this safely. One of the problems that we have with this first microscope lab is that students, oftentimes they come to college, maybe they used a microscope once in 10th grade. Maybe they had a class where the instructor put everything on the microscope and they peered into it. And sometimes our students come to us never having held a microscope in their lives. So really students are coming to us from different backgrounds on this. And so this first laboratory, there's a lot of time that the instructors have their faces in the students' microscopes. And that's one of the things that I'm very serious about, making sure that we're doing that safely. So I need to kind of back off on some of that instruction, but nonetheless, I want our students learning how to use these instruments. So we're going to spend a day on that. We're going to do another experiment where we're going to teach sterile transfer techniques. So we're going to do a study on soil, soil microbial diversity and abundance. So students are going to learn how to streak a plate and do it under sterile conditions. We're going to have one more field trip. We're going to go out and gather some data, I think, in late October. And then getting into November, we'll do some animal form and function with some dissections back in the laboratory. So we still have a lot to get through yet this semester.
Great. Yeah, sounds like a busy semester, but really cool stuff. As we're ending, I know some folks might have to leave. There are our faculty will post some office hours as that was requested on the Facebook live feed. Let's see if we can jump over to Kate. What is going on with the rest of the semester for chemistry labs?
Yeah, so we just finished up a lab where we were lighting metal salts on fire and got some pretty fun colors. Students love that. What are we, halfway about? So we have a couple more in-person and virtual labs left. In our lab specifically, we started real slow and we're starting to ramp up. They will be getting their first lab report assignment from me in about 2 weeks. So that's kind of where that's coming. Other than that, they'll have their lab report and just regular old stuff. After Thanksgiving, they do have a week where they'll have not a test or an exam, but just kind of a assessment on their skills that they've learned on calculations and everything else. And I am planning on giving them kind of a week after Thanksgiving to make up that online stuff that they may have missed, give them some bonus points here and there. But that's pretty much it for Gen Chem Lab.
Great. And then Neil.
Sure. So I guess I'll say what I said at the very beginning is that general chemistry is taught in a very consistent pattern, and I would say we're going to keep doing that. So we're going to round out the semester with week by week assignments and videos and lectures and homework. And so I would ask if your students in general chemistry say, what did you do last week? And I can tell you it's going to be the same process moving forward. So it's very consistent. And I'm happy to say we're also actually almost ahead of schedule. So students will have a little bit of time this coming week to actually follow up on some missed work. At the end of the semester, once they go home for finals, I'm going to be having a final project where they're essentially going to be asked to synthesize kind of a concept or idea from chemistry throughout the semester. And that is going to be the entirety of the rest of the semester. So I'm really happy that we're at the pace we're moving, and I actually want to give students a chance to follow up and make sure that they're aware of all the things they're supposed to get done and get those done in case they haven't.
Great, thank you so much. Again, I want to thank our faculty for being here. I know that they are so busy and juggling life with children and family and all of that. It is, just like all of you are who are families here too. So thank you. And again, hopefully this helps just build a little bit of a relationship with you all, with our faculty. So you could again say they're not scary, they're not the principal, they're not getting into trouble. And we could continue to have some open lines of communication to support our students. And I'm going to just make sure we get all of the office hours posted on Facebook as well. So tomorrow we actually have another family info session that is about something totally unrelated to your student necessarily, but it's about ESF and sustainability initiatives that we do. So if you're curious, I actually just put on solar panels on my house just like literally a week ago. I didn't do it, a company did it, but just things like that we could touch on. So yeah, again, thank you. And if there's no further questions, we are going to end this. Get your last minute questions in if you can. We could wait a little. It looks like we've just gotten really great thanks, appreciation. It sounds like a lot of people have liked the labs. So it's nice to see that your students are sharing some positive things as well too. There's also a math tutoring center, which offers 20+ hours a week of tutoring. So that's a really great thing to, again, make your student aware of. And you all know that anytime there are questions or your student is saying something, it's always okay to call the Division of Student Affairs. I will put that number in here real quick, just in case they say something and you just want to, double check that. We're happy to do that, but we obviously, don't force students to email or check in. We'll just say, yes, we have that service. Please do encourage your student. We don't email and say your parent called and said you need to get tutoring or you need to email your professor. So so it is a fine line, but definitely hopefully this helps. Looks like we haven't had any more question in the minute. I was just chatting. So again, thank everyone for being here and to the families for taking time on your Sunday night to be here as well. All right. Well then, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for hosting this.
Not a problem. All right, everyone, I'm going to sign out for everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye-bye.